Welcome back to Buy or Buy. Okay, let's jump right into today's explainer. We are focusing exclusively on the 2018 to 2024 Aston Martin DBS Superleggera lineage. Just to be clear up front, we're not talking about the DB11, the Vantage, or the brand new 2024 Vanquish. No, this explainer is dedicated to an absolute milestone of a machine. This is the V12 Grand Touring masterpiece that officially closed out an entire era of in-house Aston Martin V12 engineering. Now, you might be thinking this car looks a little familiar, and you'd be right. Aston Martin famously used the DBS Superleggera as James Bond's ride in the 2021 film No Time to Die. But here is the brutal irony of this car. The production version is plagued by so many electronic gremlins, body panel cracking issues, and just catastrophic turbocharger oil seal failures that honestly even Bond himself probably had Q branch on speed dial just to keep the thing on the road. As we dig into this, you're going to see that the DBS Superleggera is, without a doubt, a car you buy with your heart, and definitely not your head. But before we get to the scary math, let's appreciate the heritage here, because it's genuinely special. The name itself revives two iconic pieces of history. The DBS badge originally graced Aston's top Grand Tours way back from 1967 to 1972, and then again from 2007 to 2012. And the Superleggera tag, that means super light in Italian. It's borrowed from the historic Italian coach building firm Carrozzeria Touring Superleggera, honoring the lightweight body construction techniques they used for Aston back in the 1960s. So, tracing the modern timeline of this flagship GT, it launched in June 2018, stepping in to directly replace the older 2012 to 2018 V12 Vanquish. Over its run, we saw the Volante convertible hit the streets in 2019, the ultra-exclusive GT Zagato in 2020, and finally, it took its final bow in 2023 with the 499-unit DBS 770 Ultimate. And I want to emphasize this again, this is a completely distinct, totally different chassis from the new 2024 and up Vanquish. Okay, let's slow down for a second and look at the mechanical heart of this beast. It is a work of art. This is Aston's own A31 5.2-liter twin-turbo V12. This is a bespoke, in-house Gaydon engine architecture. Listen, despite Aston's partnership with Daimler during this era, this is not a Mercedes-AMG-sourced engine. Every single one of these V12s was hand-built, and they were signed by a single Cosworth-trained engine builder, complete with their signature plate sitting right there on the engine cover. It breathes through twin Bosch turbochargers, and crucially, that ZF 8-speed transmission sits in a rear transaxle layout that gives this massive Grand Tourer a perfect 50-50 weight distribution. So what's the result of all that bespoke engineering? A staggering 715 horsepower and 663 pound-feet of torque. This pushes the DBS from 0 to 60 in a blistering 3.4 seconds, all the way to a top speed of 211 miles per hour. That right there is the seduction phase of this car, completely realized. Section 2. A brutal ownership reality. Bought with the heart, not the head. Because here on Buy or Buy, we don't just look at the glossy spec sheet. We have to pivot hard into the sting. Take a long look at those numbers. $14,000 to $22,000. That is the cost to replace the AE31 V12's twin turbochargers when the oil seals inevitably fail. And the data shows this isn't some rare maybe if you hit high mileage. This is an issue that is heavily documented to occur between 30,000 and 50,000 miles. And guys, the hits just keep coming. While the ZF transmission itself is generally reliable, dumping 715 horsepower through it puts immense stress on the drivetrain. If previous owners neglected the fluid services, transmission valve bodywear will set you back between $4,500 and $7,500. A full transmission rebuild? You're looking at $12,000 to $18,000. High-pressure fuel pumps are known to fail. That's another $3,500 to $6,500. Even the active aero rear spoiler motor failing is a $3,500 to $5,500 fix. Those are some staggering drivetrain repair costs. Here's another fun set of numbers. $8,000 to $15,000. The DBS makes extensive use of carbon fiber body panels to save weight, right? Well, a rogue pebble on the highway can cause hairline cracks in that carbon fiber. Fixing that requires highly specialized repair, and it can easily range from $8,000 to $15,000 per panel. Now you might be thinking, what if nothing actually breaks? What if I find a perfect one? Well, just doing routine maintenance is a nightmare. Standard wear and tear items command absolute hypercar premiums, replacing your Brembo carbon ceramic brake discs, $16,000 to $25,000 per axle. The adaptive Bilstein shocks are known to fail, and they run up to $7,500 a pair. Your baseline annual service is $2,500 to $4,500, and that spikes to $6,000 to $10,000 every 4 years for a major service. And the reality that compounds literally all of this is the parts ecosystem. Aston Martin's parts network is tiny. Every single part is sourced strictly through Aston dealers. There are virtually no aftermarket alternatives for the major components. Specialist labor is going to run you between $250 and $450 an hour. So when something fails, you pay full retail. And you wait. You could be waiting anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks just for parts to arrive. Section 3. Current market and competitors. Does depreciation make the risk worthwhile? Let's explore the financial math of buying a secondhand DBS Superleggera today. Looking at data from Bring a Trailer and DuPont Registry, standard coupes have depreciated incredibly heavily. They used to be $300,000+ cars, and now they trade typically between $180,000 and $260,000. Volante convertibles command a bit of a premium. Meanwhile, that ultra-rare 770 Ultimate and the multi-million-dollar GT Zagato, which was only sold as a pair with the DB4 GT continuation, by the way, those maintain extreme collector status and skip the depreciation curve entirely. But if we compare the standard used DBS at roughly $200,000 to its own Aston siblings, the choice gets tricky. You can get into its sister platform, the DB11, for far cheaper, around $80,000 to $180,000. Or for $100,000 to $200,000, you could buy the older, much simpler, naturally aspirated V12 Vanquish that we covered in Batch 21 here on the channel. And against its direct front-engine V12 Grand Touring rivals? Well, the Bentley Continental GT is a way cheaper entry point, sitting between $90,000 and $180,000. On the complete other end, the naturally aspirated Ferrari 812 Superfast sits in a totally different pricing stratosphere, typically demanding $300,000 to $450,000. So the DBS is sitting right there in the middle. So, what does this all mean? We arrive at the ultimate question. Is the DBS Superleggera worth the risk? How do we possibly weigh that incredible in-house V12 pedigree, that hand-built Gaydon heritage against undeniable financial quicksand? Well, let's make one concession right out of the gate. The 770 Ultimate is the exception. At just 499 units produced, representing the absolute final chapter of Aston's pre-relaunched V12 era, it works on paper purely for collector status. But again, that's only if you have the budget for the $10,000 to $20,000 in annual ownership costs that the car will demand. I want you to really think about this number. $15,000 to $25,000, because for a standard $200,000 used DBS Superleggera, your realistic annual ownership cost runs $15,000 to $25,000 a year, and that's plus depreciation. The math only works one way. You need a $5,000 to $15,000 annual budget strictly for routine service, a $14,000 to $22,000 emergency fund for when those turbos eventually fail, and you need an existing relationship with a specialist mechanic who is fine with multi-week parts delays. And that brings us to our final, definitive verdict. Avoid the standard DBS Superleggera. Look, unless you have documented, ironclad proof of a recent turbo rebuild history, and you literally have a specialist Aston mechanic on speed dial, this car is going to break your heart and completely empty your wallet. To summarize, new, not available. Production ended in 2023. Used, you're looking at $180,000 to $750,000, excluding that Zagato pair. It's a breathtaking machine, absolutely stunning. But today on Buy or Buy, the verdict is a resounding buy. Does that cinematic beauty outweigh the massive repair bills for you? Let me know. I'll see you in the next one.